Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here at 10:10 here on this Monday night on this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. The Rays with a 1-0 victory over the Texas Rangers tonight. It was Tyler Glasnow on the bump. He has really solidified himself now as the ace of the staff. Goes 7 2/3 of no runs. Took a no-hit bid into the 5th inning. 1 walk, 14 strikeouts, a career high for him. That 14 strikeout is one shy of the franchise single-game record set by a couple of guys. James Shields in 2012 and Archer in 15. Cody Reed got an out. Diego Castillo with a bit scary of a save for his third of the year in his 1 inning of work. And the offense, of course, with the 1 run was pretty abysmal throughout. The only saving grace for that was a solo home run for Willy Adames that went 376 to left in the 7th inning. So for a while there, it looked like the Rays were going to give Tyler Glasnow the Jacob deGrom treatment, if you will, where he's going out and spinning an absolute gem, and they were not able to provide some run support for him. Thankfully, the 1 run was enough, and Tyler Glasnow gets a win, his first of the year, for his efforts, almost going 8 innings pitched. He had a man on first with 2 outs, and Kevin Cash, doing what he does, came out to the mound to get the ball from the 6'7" right-hander. And, of course, the about 3,500 Rays fans that were in attendance tonight were, booing and all those things. And I was ready to come on the show and kind of be negative about the move, because for a while there it looked like it wasn't necessarily going to work out. Yes, Cody Reed did get the 1 out in just 2 pitches of work to get out of the 8th, but then you had Castillo, who had 5 outs just yesterday, and now he threw 22 pitches in his one inning of work here tonight, which would certainly put him out of play for tomorrow and even potentially the following day. I'm not sure exactly why Cash is being so aggressive with Castillo this early in the season. You would think at this time, if you've got starters that are able to go deep, then maybe you just let them go. I understand Glasnow is at 102 pitches, and that's the kind of where the mark is. They don't want to let him go too far past that. But with all the bullpen injuries they've already had, and since the last time we've talked, Pete Fairbanks is on, it looks like, the 10-day injured list with a right shoulder rotator cuff issue. So we'll discuss some of that. So yes, with that being said, on this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. We have the weekend series victory over the New York Yankees to discuss as well, so we'll get into all those three games somewhat expeditiously, because I know everyone listening probably, we're watching the games, following the games, etc., but I just wanted to get my thoughts on there about those three contests. Certainly exceeded my expectations for what the weekend would be, but yeah, not to get too far into that just yet. So yes, if you're listening and you'd like to call in, talk Rays tonight's victory or the weekend series against the Yankees, whatever you want to say, this is certainly the place to do so. The number to call is 877-566-1020. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back to recap the Yankees series. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBCOfficial. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC. And at 10:15, we return on the William Haynes Show. Yes, of course, we have a Rays 1-0 win tonight over the Texas Rangers to discuss. We'll get into that in a little bit. By the way, that win did bring the Rays back up to 500. They are now at a 5-5 mark as they have 3 games in the next 3 days against the Texas Rangers, and then they'll go on the road for a weekend series against the Yankees once again. So we'll continue those discussions later in the show. And again, number to call the show if you wish to air some of your thoughts. You can certainly do so. The number to call, 877-566-1020. But now getting into the weekend series against the Yankees. It was obviously a successful series as they take 2 out of 3. Nothing quite monologue worthy, which I'm glad I didn't have anything prepared, because I think tonight's game can kind of stand on its own for its own show. But to set the scene of where the Rays were in that series against the Yankees, they were coming home for the first time of the 2021 season. Of course, their home opener, Stu Sternberg, was there. It was the first time Rays fans were in Tropicana Field for the first time since the 2019 ALDS. So a lot of exciting stuff. The Rays were going to be unveiling their 2 banners that they earned over the course of the 2020 season. That would be, of course, the American League East champion and the American League champion, and they got to hang those banners right in front of their American League East rival that they had to beat for the division, and also beat in a playoff series en route to the American League pennant. So I think everything worked out just fine on that front. It looks like there's still some animosity between these two teams. I don't even exactly know where to start. I know Austin Meadows, I think, was hit by a pitch, 3 times over the course of the weekend, and they hit a couple of other batters. It seems like everyone on the Rays is just ready for this nonsense to be over with. I thought that we were done with the beanball after all the nonsense last year with Chapman throwing at Brasso in September, and then, of course, Brasso hitting the home run off of Chapman in the ALDS in Game 5. But no, of course, the Yankees have never been known to be anything other than sore losers. So, of course, they come out in their first series of the season against the Rays, and instead of just letting their play on the field speak for itself, they want to play beanball. Okay, fine. But as we look towards the actual games, Game 1 was a 10-5 victory. The Rays compiled 13 hits, earning those 10 runs, and then they allowed 7 hits and the 5 runs to the Yankees. It was Rich Hill going up against Corey Kluber. Going into this series, when we were previewing it on the show, I had mentioned that the Yankees' pitching matchups were in our favor. None of the guys had really shown anything their first start, that being Kluber and Domingo Germán, and also Jordan Montgomery, and the Rays had success against all of those guys. Corey Kluber was not able to finish 3 innings of work. He only goes 2 1/3, basically 5 runs on 5 hits. The Rays able to pounce on him early. They get 2 runs in the second. It was an RBI double for Adames and a sac fly for Brett Phillips. And then in the third inning, they're able to get to him as well. It was an RBI single for Randy Arozarena and a 2 RBI double for Joey Wendell, as everyone really was getting involved in the action offensively. And then they added on to basically their offensive explosion there in the early goings with another 4 runs in the fourth inning. It was a bases clearing double, so 3 RBIs on that hit for Brandon Lau, which was his second extra base hit of the year, and it was an RBI single for Yandy Diaz, and then they scored another run in the 7th off of a Willy Adames solo home run, which was his first of the year. And speaking of extra base hits, it was something that we talked about over the course of that series in Boston where the Rays got swept. It seems like, at least in the early goings, they're going to have at times an over-reliance on the long ball and that kind of thing, which I think coincidentally worked out tonight to that point, and that the only run that the Rays were able to put up was off of a solo home run by Willy Adames. But in Game 1 against the Yankees, they were able to compile, it looks like, 7 extra base hits, 6 of them being doubles, and that 1 home run for Adames. So anytime you're able to break through in that regard, and obviously Tropicana Field not known for really a hitter's park, but the Rays, of course, feel very comfortable playing there. And they were able to get to pretty much all of the relievers that came in after Corey Kluber, save for Luis Cessa, who came in garbage time at the end. Looking at guys offensively for the Rays, Austin Meadows, I think, had a fantastic game, and he's really having himself quite a homestand here when he's not getting hit by pitches, which obviously accidentally, I think he almost got hit by another pitch tonight, and he's getting walked a ton. But in that Friday game, he was 3 for 4 with a walk, so basically in 5 plate appearances, he's reaching base 4 times. You like to see that. Yoshi, we thought maybe it was on the upswing. He was 2 for 4. And then also the guys in the multi-hit club was Yandy Diaz, 2 for 3. And then both Wendell and Adames were 2 for 4. And they had some extra base hits of their own. So from the offensive side of things, everything was going well. They were 6 for 16 with runners in scoring position, which I guess is not a great percentage, but 6 hits with runners in scoring position, you take that. And obviously it was a volume kind of game, so there was lots of opportunities, and you can't cash in on all of them. And they left 6 men on base. But then looking to the pitching side for the Rays, it was Rich Hill on the mound, and in his second start of the year, he really struggled his first time out in about 3 or 4 innings against the Marlins. He was not able to really get any swing and miss. Every pitch against Miami was at least fouled off, and so there was some great concern with the soft-tossing lefty Hill going up against this power right-handed Yankee lineup, and I think he passed the test with flying colors, going 6 innings, getting the win, 4 runs on 4 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts. So I think at the end of the day, especially the shape that the bullpen was in, 6 innings of 4 runs, at least on that day, was enough to get the job done. And we finally saw some of that swing and miss that we were expecting when the Rays signed over the 41-year-old left-hander. And so we hope to see more of that. It seemed like the Yankees were catching on relatively early, but then he found his stride. I think he had retired somewhere around about 10 in a row at one point in the game. So he really found his stride, and when the Rays' offense was booming, he was able to put up shutdown innings, which is what you would expect from a veteran guy like Rich Hill. So I think now he's pushed himself back into the good graces of Rays fans, if you will, and earning his first victory of the season. certainly a good thing for him. He only had to throw 83 pitches to get 6 innings, so in a world where he's maybe 10 years younger or more, 10, 15 years younger, he could maybe go for 7 or 8. But obviously being 41, you want to be careful. So he gets the 6 innings. Hunter Strickland, whom the Rays had brought up from the alternate training site after sending down Pete Fairbanks to the 10-day injured list with the rotator cuff issue, which I believe, unless I stand corrected, is the 10-day injured list. I'm hoping that's not the 60-day IL. I'm pretty positive it's the 10-day. But they brought up Hunter Strickland, and in his Rays debut, put up 2 innings. Was fine. I mean, it was pretty much, I guess, in garbage time. The game was relatively in reach, but 2 innings of 1-run ball, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and 36 pitches, 24 for strikes. So did a pretty good job in that regard. And then Chris Mazza coming on in the 9th after. I believe getting some bulk work just 2 days before in Boston. And then he also, by the way, pitched another inning the following day. So Chris Mazza being used in all kinds of different ways. So that was interesting to see, and I think he's impressed so far. One thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention, the Yankees did put up 4 runs in the 3rd inning. So at the end of 3, it was 5-4 Rays. And so the game obviously was in reach at that point, but then it was the 4-run 4th inning that the Rays put up against what would have been Nick Nelson that put the game out of reach. So good on the offense for being able to separate, because even tonight that's something that the offense has struggled with, so that they were able to at least accomplish it on that day shows that, who knows, we get lucky enough. Maybe the Rays can separate offensively, on any given day. So 10-5 victory in Game 1 in the home opener. Everyone went home happy. So that was good. Now we turn the page to the Saturday game, and that was a 4-0 win for the Rays. So they do shut out the Yankees. The Yanks getting 5 hits on the board, and the Rays putting up 10 hits, basically leading to the 4 runs. And by the way, kind of a defining feature of the game, it was two errors for the Yankees defensively, and I believe another wild pitch or two, or they call them pass balls against Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez did have a pretty rough game behind the plate. So it was Domingo Germán going up against Chris Archer. And I get multiple stories in this game. Chris Archer, of course, pitching for the Rays in the trot for the first time since he was traded to the Pirates in 2018. And I know he was really a Rays fan favorite, so it was a big deal to be able to have him back starting in that game. And I was a little bit concerned about him just because of what we saw in his first outing against the Marlins. He came in that game as basically the tandem starter after Rich Hill. And I think maybe that's what messed him up. Obviously, his pitches weren't very sharp. That's where Austin Meadows were losing those balls in right field. The deep drives into right. And here on that Saturday game, I thought Archer looked a lot sharper. His sliders looked like they used to. The fastball was riding good. The velocity was a little bit lower than we saw in spring training. And then I think also throughout a couple of those changeups, that's his new 3rd pitch. And they all looked pretty good. He came out in the 3rd inning, so he only got 5 outs, so 2 1/3. And it looks like it's lateral forearm tightness, which, if you've heard that before, I guess the vertical forearm tightness is what leads usually to the Tommy John surgery because it's connected to the UCL elbow ligament. But if it's the lateral forearm tightness, I guess it's not associated with that ligament. So no, Archer will not need Tommy John surgery, nothing of the like. He goes on the 10-day injured list. And by the way, the Rays bring up basically bulk man, swing man, could start Trevor Richards in his place. And we'll probably see him start, I guess, one of those games, either at the end of the Rangers series or maybe in the Bronx, which not super thrilled about, but it is what it is. But really the good news is that the $6.5 million investment that the Rays made to Chris Archer, it's a good thing that didn't go kaboom after only his 2nd outing. So it looks like he may miss a turn or two through the rotation. But if he's able to come off the injured list and look like he did on Saturday, I think we're talking about a guy that could return maybe to his old form and really go out there and pitch well. On the Sunday before the Sunday game on the radio on this week in Rays baseball that they do on the radio side, Chris Archer was interviewed by Neil Solondz, and you could tell that they did the interview before the game, obviously, and before Archer was injured, and he was talking about how excited he was to really get deeper into the season, and that the Rays were going to basically keep the training wheels on him through the month of April. And then by the time May rolled around, that they would take him off, and he would be able to basically, be free to do what he does, whether that's 6 or 7 innings, 100 pitches, getting him fully stretched out. So it's unfortunate to see that kind of setback, but certainly the potential, the ceiling was there. And, he did get 2 1/3, so I guess in the very micro view, he also helped too. Gave up 3 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts. You could tell he kind of lost the velocity and control there at the end. I think, he gave up a double to the last man he faced. And I think really the story of this game was both how the Rays were able to score early again and then maybe not able to separate towards the end, but also how the bullpen was able to string it together. This was kind of a classic 2020 game, or even at times during the 2019 season where it was all hands on deck. So Kittredge comes on after the Archer injury, so he's having a warm-up cold basically on the game mound, and he gets an inning and 2/3, scoreless, only 1 hit and 1 walk. He came in with a situation with LeMahieu at second base and only 1 out in what was at that time only a 3-0 game, so hats off to him for getting those outs. And then he got all the way through the 4th inning as well. So those were some big outs for Andrew Kittredge, and that basically got them through 4, which is, maybe what Archer would have done anyway. So then they could, I guess, kind of go to somewhat their originally planned bullpen. Jeffrey Springs gets 2 innings of no runs, and he continues, I suppose, to kind of dazzle so far. A nice, effective lefty out of the bullpen. Getting strikeouts of LeMahieu and Aaron Hicks, getting all those guys out. Gave up a single to Aaron Judge, but that was it for him. And then after that, and of course that was Springs getting them through the 6th inning. So then, 4-0 game with only 9 outs left to get. Then they can kind of turn it over to maybe not the A bullpen, but that kind of situation. And it was Ryan Thompson who got a 1-2-3 in the 7th, facing the 7, 8, 9 men. They brought out the lefty Cody Reed, and I think his first real kind of game situation that wasn't garbage time or mop-up duty or anything like that, pitching with the lead. He basically gave DJ LeMahieu the leadoff walk, but was able to turn a double play there. And then in the 9th inning, it was not a safe situation, but Chris Mazza pitching on a back-to-back day, and he got his 1 inning, his 3 outs, throwing only 8 pitches. So that was great to see. Obviously on all ends. And then you look offensively, and again, they were able to score 1 run in the 1st, 2 runs in the 2nd, and 1 in the 3rd. So not quite as much offense as was in the Friday game, but that they were able to score early. I've been saying that that's a key for this offense to get going. Obviously, I don't want them to stop scoring at that point. You should score more runs throughout the game. So anytime you basically can generate nothing offensively after the 3rd inning, that's not great, but scoring first is certainly a good thing. It was a solo home run for Meadows in the 1st. Then in the 2nd, it was a 2 RBI single for Francisco Mejia as he continues to get base hits in clutch situations and able to drive in runs. And I thought he had a pretty nice game behind the plate. Didn't really do much on offense, but really showcased that cannon of an arm, I think really for the first time this season that we've been able to see that. But anyway, those were the 2 runs that he drove in the 2nd, and then in the 3rd, it was a solo home run for Randy Arozarena, getting his first home run of the year. So you look at those 2 guys, I think, high expectations for both of them coming into the season. Meadows, I think, obviously is on track for that 2019 form that we've continued to talk about. He's got 3 home runs, and I think also a couple doubles to his name. And then Randy Arozarena picking up his first home run of the year. I know his brother was in attendance, the guy that was recently signed to the Tampa Bay Rowdies, which is owned by the Rays, but that was cool for Arozarena to get on the board. And his first game, or his 2nd game in front of fans at the Trop and hitting the home run, so that was cool to see. And then Brett Phillips getting his first double of the year as well, so 3 extra base hits for them in that regard. They went 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Of course, that 2 RBI single for Francisco Mejia was the only one of those, and they left 11 men on base. They were consistently getting men on, but not able to drive them in. And if this has not been kind of one of the defining factors of this era of Rays baseball, I don't know what is. But they score early, all hands on deck out of the bullpen, and they're able to lock it up. And anytime you shut out the Yankees, that's a good thing. I think they've only been shut out only 3 times on the road since 2019, I want to say, which doesn't sound right, but I think they're all against the Rays in Tropicana Field, of course. So that's a neat thing. Obviously, the Trop, it was being weird, as it always does when the Yankees are in town. It seems like Yankee fielders were kind of losing the baseball in the dome and having trouble with the turf and all those things. So in a devious way, obviously, you like to see that kind of stuff, and that's what home field advantage is all about. So we flip the page now to the final game of the series, the Sunday game. It was the Yankees avoiding the sweep with an 8-4 win over the Tampa Bay Rays in 10 innings, and the Rays really had control of this game just about all the way through. They put up 2 in the second, 2 in the third. The Yankees had 3 in the third, so the game was it was 4-3 after the third inning, and it was that way all the way until the 8th, where the Yankees put up a run, a tie, and then they score 4 runs in the 10th to run away from it. And I guess we'll kind of unpack all that. There was not a ton going offensively. The only multi-hit guy was Mike Zunino, who hit his second home run of the year. It was Brent Honeywell on the mound against Jordan Montgomery. So of course this was really the defining factor of the game. Brett Honeywell pitching for the first time in, I want to say, about 1,300 days. It had not been since September of 2017 since he pitched in a real game situation. That was the AAA National Championship way back when, and since then he's had a total of 4 arm surgeries. Of course, the 2 Tommy Johns, and he had to have from what I believe a surgery to clean up, I guess, some nerve issues and things of that nature, and then also had one final surgery to go into that right elbow and clean up some loose bodies and things of that sort from, obviously, the previous procedures. I was not sure if Honeywell would ever really be back, and if so, if he would be at his dominant nature, when at that time in 2017 he was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. The way it worked for today's game, he was scheduled to pitch 2 innings anyway at the alternate site, so they needed an arm basically to pitch. They decided they wanted to go with an opener for Michael Wacha, which I think was a smart decision, and so they just send Brent Honeywell up. He's got all those options in his contract, so he comes up on Sunday to make his major league debut, and there was pictures of him kind of soaking it all up, standing in the dugout, watching batting practice and all those things. Really a cool story if you're not familiar with it. Rays media is great too. They put together all kinds of cool stuff. So, and I was there in person to see it, so I thought that was a really cool thing to see, as the Rays were going for the sweep, and Brent Honeywell pitches basically 2 perfect innings, picking up 2 strikeouts in the process, and making his major league debut against the New York Yankees is not easy. I mean, facing LeMahieu, Judge, Hicks, Stanton, Torres, and then Rougned Odor, and putting them all down in order. 1, 2, 3 innings in both of the frames, obviously, was a really cool thing to see. 21 pitches, 14 for strikes. He was 3 for 6 in establishing the first pitch strike, and it seemed like the Rays Stadium had, for whatever reason, some difficulty identifying his pitches, a lot of them being fastballs, but a kind of a low to mid-90s fastball, a cutter off of that kind of works as a changeup, and then I guess another pitch that is considered a changeup is what we saw from him. ESPN's also got a screwball that he threw in there, so he's got all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure if he was limited in what he could throw, as he's obviously still coming back and getting stretched out and all those things. But yeah, pretty much just fastball, cutter, changeup. A lot of different looks, and anytime you can show that kind of dominance against those kind of hitters is a really good thing to see. So he gets the 2 innings scoreless, and then Michael Wacha comes into play. His first inning kind of just vomits all over the mound in a metaphorical way, I suppose. Allows the first 5 men that he faced to reach base. So it really seemed like it was going to be a nightmare scenario there for a second. Walked Gary Sanchez, leadoff walk, and then a 2-run homer for Gio Urshela, which at that point tied the game. Then a single to Gardner, a double to LeMahieu, a walk to Judge, and then thanks to a double play and a ground out, he was able to get out of that inning. And then after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing as he picked up scoreless frames, including a couple of 1-2-3 innings in the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. So he finishes with 4 innings pitched, does Michael Wacha, in his second outing of the year. 3 runs on 3 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. So had 2 walks over 5 innings in Boston, and then had 3 walks and 4 innings at home against the Yankees. So walks is definitely a concern. The long ball, the extra base hits is definitely a concern. I guess if I had to say at this point, those would be kind of the 2 weaknesses that I'd point to. But he's the caliber of a pitcher that he's at this point in his career. He's a 5 starter. So obviously your number 5 starter, anytime he's on the mound, he's not going to win you the game. If anything, he'll lose you the game. So your offense is going to need to show up. The Rays were able to score 4 runs, which for a while there looked like it was going to be enough, and then ultimately was not. And I suppose ultimately you fault the Rays offense for not being able to separate, because if they had been able to just add 1 more run, then you think maybe they're coming out of there with the win on Sunday in the series sweep. But no dice in that regard. Cody Reed came in to get an out. That was a situation. So I believe so. Yeah, so Cody Reed got 1 out and put a couple of men on. So it was men at first and second with only 1 out. And then they had Ryan Thompson, who got a double play there with first and second and 1 out, mind you, in a 1-run game. And then Thompson came out for another inning, and then he got himself into a mess. And then they brought in Castillo to come in, and he took care of that. And then pitched the 9th inning. So it was just one reliever kind of passing on their mess to another, and they were able to kind of piece their way through. But the Yankees did put up a run in the 8th inning to tie things that made it 4-4, and the game ultimately ended up going extras. In the top of the frame, it was Colin McHugh, and in his 3rd outing of the year, of course, he pitched really bad, his season debut against the Marlins, and then had 3 innings of mop-up duty against the Red Sox. And then here, I'm not quite sure the thought process behind having him pitch in that 10th inning. I guess they just really didn't have anyone else, as they had already used Reed, Thompson, Castillo. But it was rough sledding for McHugh there in the extras. A hit by pitch, and then a couple base hits as well, 3 singles in fact. And the Rays were almost able to get out of it thanks to some bad base running for the Yankees and some good defense, but it was not meant to be. And then the Rays obviously not able to put up anything in their bottom frame of the 10th inning. So that was pretty much the game. The Rays went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, leaving a total of 6 men on base. So that was really kind of the defining factor. It was great that they scored early. Again, 2 runs in the 2nd, 2 in the 3rd. So it was a 2-run homer for Zunino, his 2nd of the season, and then a 2-run homer in the 3rd by Randy Arozarena. So 2 homers in 2 days for Randy there. And we've seen that a lot. We see those games all too often where it's like this game, 4-3 after 3 innings, and the Rays are, they just hunker down and they're like, all right, all we need is, what at that point is 18 outs. You're already counting outs at that point, which is just ridiculous. And obviously that's not, the genuine thought process, but just, that's what it appears to be. And they were getting men in scoring position. They were getting men on base, but could not come through, not even one time. And again, relying on the long ball for their only offense. And I guess kind of the meltdown in extra innings kind of culminated that game. So, but still still a series victory over basically your main American League East rival. So that was good news. That put them at 4-5, and obviously the win here tonight was able to bring them back up to 500. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk about tonight's 1-0 win over the Rangers. So in the meantime, during the break, if you want to call the show, you can do so, 877-566-1020. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for Williams' other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
HBC. And at 10:43, we are back on the William Haynes Show now, returning with our recap and thoughts of tonight's 1-0 win over the Texas Rangers. Again, number to call the show, 877-566-1020. But with that being said, for the Rays, it was 1 run on 3 hits, no errors for them. And then for the Rangers, no runs on 3 hits, so they matched in hits and no errors also for them. Getting the win, it was Tyler Glasnow going 7 2/3 scoreless. We led off the show, basically the best start of Glasnow's career so far, so the fact that he's already started 2021 off with this much success is a good sight. And then Castillo picking up his 3rd save of the season. Got a little bit dicey there at the end. It was former Ray Nate Lowe that came up to the plate with a chance. He had the go-ahead run standing at first base when he came to the plate, and he struck out looking against Castillo for the 3rd and final out of that 9th inning to close things out. I guess we'll start really with Glasnow because that is going to be the story of the game. Who knows if he's able to go this deep into a ball game again this year. Obviously, the hope would be that would continue, but looking at the Rangers of Texas, this has been an ongoing problem for them. This was actually the 3rd time that they have been shut out in their last 4 games, which honestly is astonishing if you look at it that way. They got no hit a handful of nights ago by Joe Musgrove in the San Diego Padres, and the fact that they almost got no hit again. Glasnow taking a no-hitter into the 5th inning. It was with 1 out in the 5th that Eli White was able to get on with a single that was through the infield and I guess kind of against the shift. But Glasnow looked absolutely spectacular. He was out there spinning his stuff. I think we've seen a bit of a correction in Glasnow's game over the last 2 starts. His opening day start in Miami, it seemed like he was, like a kid on Christmas Day with that new pitch, this slider, and all he wanted to do was play with his new toy. And so it was just slider after slider after slider. And he did get through 6 innings scoreless in that game and looked absolutely phenomenal and dominant. But it was clear that was not Glasnow's game. Glasnow is a fastball first pitcher with a nice curveball off of that, and now maybe the slider as another kind of accent, another addition off of that curveball. And so the last 2 starts, that's what Glasnow has been able to do. And he's had success in all 3 of his starts. I mean, he's pitching absolutely fantastic to start this season. Went 6 innings scoreless on opening day. Went 6 innings of 1 run in Fenway Park against the Red Sox. And tonight going almost 8 innings, giving up no runs. And we talked about how he came out maybe a little bit early and how basically that almost came back to doom the Rays. And it seems like every time the Rays make what seems at that time to be an early call to the bullpen, that it ends up always being a little bit dicey. And this one went their way. I think not that this needs to really be said, but there would have been some pandemonium amongst the Rays fan base if the Rays had found a way to lose this game and basically waste this glass now gem, but then again, join the club. How do you think Mets fans feel every time Jacob deGrom is on the mound, throwing 7 or 8 innings scoreless, and the Mets seem to always lose all of the games that he starts? But the Rays were able to come through, and thankfully it was to that solo home run for Adames. It was 376 to left off of Taylor Hearn, who was certainly dealing at that point. And by the way, the Rangers' pitching plans, it was, I guess, advertised as a tandem start and ended up going that way. It was Dane Dunning getting the start for Texas. He went 4 innings scoreless, and then Taylor Hearn came on for 3 innings. So, yeah, a tandem start in that way, and Hearn giving up the solo home run, but was absolutely dominant outside of that. Most of his outs came via the strikeout. So, Taylor Hearn got 9 outs, 7 of them via the strikeout, which to me is kind of insane. And then John King came out to get the final inning when the Rays were trying to get on the board. So looking offensively for the Rays, as now we're kind of back into that regular routine of kind of going through the lineup and everything. So the lineup card that Kevin Cash submitted before tonight's game. So the defensive alignment will start in the outfield first from left to right. Margot in left, Phillips in center, and Arozarena in right. And then in the infield from third to first, Wendell at third, Adames at shortstop, Lau at second base. It was Setsugo at first, Francisco Mejia did the catching, and Austin Meadows had the honors of being the designated hitter. And the way the lineup was structured, Yoshi led off, followed by Meadows and Arozarena. Lau did the cleanup duties with Margot at fifth, Wendell at seventh, and then a 7-8-9 of Mejia, Phillips, and Adames. I really did like the way this lineup was ordered. This was the first time of the season that Adames had batted ninth, and I guess it did ultimately end up paying off. He came up with runners he came up with men on base in his first 2 at bats and struck out in both of them. Came up with Phillips on second in this second and in the second inning, and then came up with Brett Phillips on first in the 5th inning and struck out there as well. And so the first 2 at-bats were definitely rough. The first one was typical Adames, where he's chasing pitches out of the zone, basically getting down 0-2 early, and then takes a fastball down the middle for a called strike 3, which is like the most infuriating thing to watch as a baseball fan. And then in the second at-bat, I believe he had a hard-hit foul ball and a swing that looked like he really connected with the baseball, but it was not fair. And then I guess that was foreshadowing for his hit in the 7th inning off of Taylor Hearn, where he was able to send it into the left field seats, just barely getting out of there. If that was a double, I'm not sure if the Rays would have been able to come through, because it would have been Setsugo coming up with 2 outs, and who knows how that goes. So thankfully, Adames was able to get it out. As Dave Will said on the radio broadcast, he ate his extra biscuit today because, of course, as he always calls, if it's just short of being a home run, he say, "Oh yeah, I should have had the extra biscuit for breakfast." Well, this morning Adames did, or at least so it appears, and he's one of the heroes tonight, along with, of course, Glasnow, who is the main hero and really in dominating fashion. So going down the line in the order first, Yoshi Setsugo leading off. He goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. His average is now down to 161, an on-base percentage of only 235. Simply put, he has looked absolutely abysmal here during the early goings. Going into this season, like deep in the offseason, I was kind of like very low on Setsugo. I was just disappointed with his 2020 performance. You're going to have trouble in Major League Baseball if you can't hit the fastball, because that's just number one. Even if you can hit the fastball, that doesn't mean you're going to be good. But if you can't even do that, then you're going to have issues. But he has put up pretty good numbers against off-speed stuff, and there was all the talk about, Cash is going to, play him consistently and get him comfortable, and now he's feeling better in the United States in that transition. And I have nothing against Yoshi the person. I'm sure he's a great dude, but Yoshi Setsugo the player right now is absolutely struggling, and I'm not quite sure how much more time Kevin Cash can give this guy. I understand that he's counting against the books for $7 million, making him the Rays' second highest paid player, which is insane. I'm not going to kill Eric Neander or anyone for making that decision to sign him. Obviously, that's just kind of the risk, and it seems like about once every year or so, once every year or two, they'll be able to bring in not a big ticket free agent, but someone along those lines. And Tsutsugo to the 2-year, $15 million contract was the swing that the Rays took going into, or basically during the 2019 offseason, going into 2020. And it doesn't look like that 2-year contract is going to pay off. I know it's super early. We're 10 games into a 162-game season, but I have not seen anything to believe that not only that Tsutsugo could succeed, but that he's any better than he was last year, which throughout the course of the season proved that he was not able to get it done. I think having him in the leadoff spot, I'm now on board with getting that to stop happening. It's just it ruins the flow of the whole lineup. He does not work good at bats really to start the game leading off. He did have a 6-pitch at bat here to open the game in the bottom of the first, but he only saw 1 pitch out of the zone and took 2 strikes, so down 1-2, fouls a couple off, and then swings through a 91-mile-an-hour sinker through the middle of the plate. And I know that not really over 4 innings, only 2 hits against Dane Dunning. So I understand that sinker was hard to square up, and making solid contact is certainly an issue that the entire Rays lineup has had at times. But you can't afford to keep batting him first. You have Meadows and Arozarena and Lau coming up behind him. That needs to, that threat could be even better, and I think Tsutsugo is kind of holding them back in that regard. Struck out to open the first, flew out to center to open the third, struck out looking with Phillips at first in the 5th inning for out number 2, and then he followed Willie Adames' solo home run with a strikeout in the 7th, and that was his day. Batting second, it was Austin Meadows, the designated hitter. He goes 1 for 2 with a strikeout and 2 walks. So the theme continues of, I guess, guys not pitching to Meadows. He was hit with 2 or 3 pitches during the Yankees series, which to me is kind of strange. So he's getting on base a ton. His average right now is only 257, but an OBP of 409, basically, with the hit by pitches and the walks. I mean, this guy is getting on base a ton. He's my number 1 candidate to put now in the leadoff spot at DH, or put him in right, whatever, or in left, whatever you need to do. But I think, he needs to be the leadoff guy, maybe have Arozarena second, take your pick of someone at third, because I think Lau needs to be hitting cleanup. So whether the third hitter is Margot, Wendell, or even you can put Tsutsugo third, I don't care. I don't think he needs to be leadoff at this point. That might be a little difficult because you don't want Tsutsugo protecting Arozarena, so maybe scratch that. But something needs to change because this offense is going to have trouble as long as that's going on. If your number 1 hitter is one of the automatic outs in your lineup, I just don't see that ever being successful. But getting back to Meadows, he had a double in the first inning where they were able to kind of get a threat going, but no runs there. Struck out in a 1-2-3 in the third. Walked with a man on second in the 5th. So he worked his walk and then worked the leadoff walk in the 8th. So he was seeing his pitches, doing his thing. I like this more patient at-bats for Austin Meadows, which I think could also make him a spectacular leadoff hitter as well. And again, he's getting on base 40% of the time. So a mainstay at the top of the order. You love to see it. Meadows, and with 3 home runs as well, is off to a fantastic start. He also picked up his 3rd double of the season. So 6 extra base hits in 10 games. I'll take that. 3 home runs, 3 doubles. Batting third, it was Arozarena. 0 for 3, a walk, 2 strikeouts for Randy. An interesting game. It seems like no one really wants to pitch to Randy anymore after the 2020 postseason that he had. So he's not going to be kind of the free-swinging, unknown guy that he was last year. So he's off to a good start this year. The 2 home runs over the weekend against New York. He's batting basically .290 with an OBP at 341. So from those metrics, he's looking good. And then slugging an OPS I don't love because I don't some people know it, some people don't. So I don't want to, get into the real, I guess, nitty gritty, but a .474 slugging percentage for Arozarena as he's now starting to pick up some more extra base hits. But With a man on second in the first inning, he walks and did not get any strikes to look at. It was a 4-pitch walk. Struck out in a 1-2-3 in the third. Struck out with men on first and second in the fifth. So that one you'd like to see him maybe come through. That is a big spot. That's in a 0-0 game in the fifth inning. And then grounded out with a man on first in the eighth. So it was coming up with men on base. By the way, the team tonight was 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. I mentioned that already. So it wasn't just him dealing with that. Everyone was having their difficulties and was fine in right field. I think he's actually really finding his own over there in right. Batting cleanup tonight was Brandon Lau. He goes 0 for 4 with a strikeout. Nothing really to say about him. He was putting the ball in play pretty much just about every time. A pop-up to short, a ground out to the first baseman, a fly out to center. The only big spot that he came up in was with men on first and second in the first inning where he popped out to short. So that was just him trying to get the ball in the air and drive it and just popped it straight up. You don't kill a guy for that. And then was kind of just the first inning or the first out of the inning, the rest of the time. And he's not really an on-base guy. He is batting 156, OBP of 308. So I think he's still looking for I think he got his first double. So he's on the board as far as extra bases are concerned. So you would like to see that going a little more. So he has 2 doubles at this point. So maybe he gets that turnaround. He still has not hit a home run in spring training either, or the regular season. So I don't know as far as that. I would still like to keep him in the cleanup spot. I think he's going to be their kind of prototypical cleanup hitter. So we'll kind of see how that continues to trend. Batting fifth was Manuel Margot. I think that's the perfect spot for him in the order, is right at that 5 spot. One walk, 1 strikeout. Came up with those 2 men in the first and grounded out. Worked a walk in the fourth with the bases clear and got to second on a wild pitch. So, good on him for some base running, and then struck out in a 1-2-3 in the sixth inning. So not too much to take away from him either. And I think made a couple catches in left field. Joey Wendell was 0 for 3, no walks, no strikeouts. Not really much to say about him in that regard. Almost came through in the fourth inning. It was Margot who walked and then got to second on the wild pitch and then lined it right to the second baseman Nick Solak. But I mean, that ball was maybe a double off the bat, or at least a single, which probably would have scored Margot from second base. So Solak basically just took an RBI away from Wendell there, who has been fantastic, by the way, and is leading the team in runs batted in with 7, which is kind of amazing. Wendell is off to a spectacular start to start the season, so you like that, and he's playing good defense, so that's good. Francisco Mejia batting 7th, 0 for 3 with a strikeout, so not really much to say about his performance at the plate. Flew out to right with Margot at second base, so maybe could have come through there, and he's been good, driving in runs with men on base and in scoring position. But obviously, even if you bat, 300 or 400, you're still going to miss more times than not, and he didn't come through. But I will say defensively, showed some really nice things. Maybe not that resulted to outs, but like throws to first from the catcher spot. I mean, he has got an absolute rocket of an arm. I didn't really see too much of it. Like I said, tonight was really the first time that I've seen him do that kind of thing, and it's interesting that the catcher battle between him and Zunino, I was interested and intrigued that this was the first time that Mejia caught Glasnow. Usually it's been Zunino, even going back to the Michael Perez days. It seems like Zunino and Glasnow has been the battery. So Cash wanted to get Mejia's bat in the lineup, and I guess maybe telling Glasnow to deal with it, or they're just trying it out to see how it goes. Mejia did have trouble with a couple of curveballs in the dirt. He did have trouble blocking them, and they got away. That's one thing that Zunino has definitely learned how to do. Zunino knows how to catch Glasnow. I don't think really resulted to much of anything. No wild pitches for Glasnow. Thankfully, there was not really any men on base much of the time for most of Glasnow's start, so didn't have to as much worry about that. But not really cross-ups, but Mejia just not expecting the curveballs to maybe spike in the dirt like they did a couple of times. And there were times on swinging strike threes where the ball would get away and a couple men almost got on. So that was something that was a little bit interesting, and maybe see if Mejia continues to catch Glasnow, because I think Zunino is definitely a better match. But I think this is maybe Kevin Cash showing us that he wants Mejia to get more playing time. So we'll see on that. Brett Phillips, he has been fantastic this homestand coming off the injured list. He was 1 for 2 tonight with a walk and a strikeout. Also made a couple of excellent plays defensively. One, a diving play in shallow center to take away a hit from, looks like Eli White, that preserved the no-hitter, still in the second inning, but, so be it. And then had a nice play running towards the warning track in left center, which is the deepest part of Tropicana Field, and making a nice catch there. So was good defensively and was getting on base. He hit a double, which was his second of the year in the second inning. And by the way, would have had a double or a triple on one of those games against the Yankees, but Brett Gardner robbed him of one of those. So he has been swinging the bat really well. I did not expect him to have this good of a start to the season, but he has really been cementing himself well on both sides of the ball and is extremely speedy on the base path. Did pick up a stolen base, so he did double in the second, walked in the fifth, a leadoff walk in the fifth, and then stole a base, which is incredibly valuable, and then struck out looking in the seventh in a tough at-bat. But, 3 at-bats, you double in one, and then in another you walk and steal a base. That's a good game, and you pair that with what he did defensively. And I think a lot of people are high on what Brett Phillips has shown so far. Again, small sample size. I think this was only, his 4th game of the season coming off the injured list from the hamstring. But he looks perfectly healthy and good to go. And speaking of center fielders and hamstrings and whatnot, I think it was a quad for Kiermaier. But regardless, Kiermaier did some running on the field today, and it looks like he's about at 70%. At this rate, I would rather have Phillips in center than Kiermaier. And I said as much, I guess. The day we traded for Phillips, I came out and said that Phillips was going to be the Kiermaier replacement. I'm not sure at this juncture that you would trade Kiermaier, but once he's healthy, he's coming off the injured list and he's going on the 26th man. And I don't necessarily know where the room for Phillips is going to come from, but that would be a shame for Phillips, playing as good as he is, to get booted off just because Kiermaier has to come back. So that's going to be a bit of a tricky spot, but we'll see. And then, of course, batting ninth, Willy Adames, 1 for 3 with the solo home run, the 2 strikeouts. I already told you about his performance and did make some nice plays. At shortstop, has not had any kind of short arm throws or anything of that nature. Everything that's been routine has been converted as such, so everything's good on that front. And Adames always a guy that's not taking his difficulties at the plate with him to the field. Meaning, sometimes guys are struggling offensively. That's when they'll tend to make errors on defense because they, kind of gets in their head, all those things. But Adames is extremely consistent at shortstop, and anytime he hit the game-winning hit, in the 9th spot in the order, that's a really good thing to see. So that is a very promising sight for Adames. His 2nd home run of the season, and of the homestand, by the way, getting his first on the home opener on Friday. So maybe he's being able to pick it up, and maybe we're getting a flip. It's usually been road Willie that gets all the hits and is terrible at the Trop, but now maybe we're talking about some home Willie, because he's definitely struggled on the road. But now maybe if he can find himself in Tropicana Field, that would be kind of neat to see as well. So overall, the lineup was not coming up in big spots, and obviously a Rangers team that's not very good. But we've got 3 more games against this team, and I know they don't have a lot of depth as far as pitching is concerned, so maybe they'll come through tomorrow. Who knows? They could score 8 runs tomorrow and kind of put that stuff to bed. I was very encouraged with what I saw against the Yankees, so tonight is not discouraging, and I think if anything, it should be encouraging because of how the Rays were able to win a close one and hold on to that 1-run lead and all of those things. I'm trying to look at where to go next. We've talked about Glasnow ad nauseum at this point. You all know what he did. I don't really want to repeat myself too much. I told you the situation, the 7 2/3. Had a perfect game broken up. So he almost had a perfect game through 4. It was a walk to Joey Gallo to spoil that, and then had his no-hitter broken up in the 5th. With 1 out, it was Eli White singling. So he did, there was I was thinking that this could be the night because it was a terrible Rangers lineup who just got no hit, by the way, as well, by Joe Musgrove. And there was some nice plays defensively, taking away hits, which is usually a defining characteristic of a no-hitter game. Some spectacular defensive plays and all those things, but it was just not meant to be. But Glasnow going as deep into the ball game as he did was really cool. And they called the bullpen a little early, and Glasnow did not want to come out of that game. It did not look like he was too happy with Kevin Cash, and not that there was any animosity or anything of that nature, but he's talked about, if you listen to the Chris Rose rotation where he's basically I guess you could say a co-host on there, he's talked about on that program before that he would like to go deeper into ball games and those things, and basically kind of hinting at Kevin Cash needs to do a better job of recognizing when a starting pitcher is rolling, and sometimes when a guy's rolling, then your analytics should really be thrown out the window. And that's what they say in baseball. A starting pitcher gets 33 starts a year. 11 of them you're going to feel great on the mound. 11 of them you're going to feel so-so. And then the other 11 you're not going to feel great. Well, this was one of those 11 where Glasnow was obviously feeling really, really good. We saw, as I alluded to earlier in the program, as far as the pitch mix was concerned, was relying heavily on that fastball, and that's his bread and butter pitch. And for the first time this year as well, getting some curveballs and sliders taken and called for strikes. That's a new wrinkle into Glasnow's game, because when you go up to the plate against him, you basically have to sell out on the fastball. And so if you're even lucky enough to recognize slider or curveball out of the hand, and so you take the pitch and then it's called for strike, I mean, forget it. Because he's going to get you to swing and miss probably on the next pitch, pulling the string or just reaching back and throwing 96 or 97. And the fact that he was carrying his velo all the way into the 8th inning was really incredible to see. That was the deepest a Rays starter had gone into a game since 2019, that one where Yarbrough went 8 2/3 and was 1 out short of the complete game, and it was a 1-run game, so Cash went to the bullpen. And it was kind of a similar setting, obviously, 1-run game, and the starter not happy about it. But at 102 pitches, I mean, Glasnow maybe gets the final out and gets 8 innings instead of 7 2/3, but there was no way he was coming out for the 9th, even if he wanted to. I wouldn't even recommend that. The usage of the bullpen was a bit strange for me, though. You bring out Cody Reed and you burn him up. He throws 2 pitches and gets the 1 out, but facing the 9-1-2 hitters, one of them being a switch hitter, one of them being a lefty, maybe you just keep Cody Reed out because he's supposed to be a multi-inning guy, so maybe use him. But instead, they go to Castillo, who had already thrown a bunch of pitches and gotten 5 outs the day before. And he threw 22 pitches tonight in his 1 inning of work, so I'm not a big fan of that. Castillo almost really got in a mess there. I mean, it was 1st and 2nd with 2 outs. So, but I mean, sinker, slider, they were both working. They were both getting chased. I mean, he got 3 strikeouts in, first 3 outs. So, I guess it ended up okay. Rays pitching got 17 total strikeouts, which was really cool to see. They were definitely doing their thing. The offense for the Rays struck out 12 times and walked 5. So, maybe like to see that ratio swing a little bit in the other way. But, I guess at the end of the day, a win is a win. And for Glasnow, 102 pitches, 73 for strikes. And of the 25 men he faced, established the first pitch strike 14 out of those 25 times, which to me is not too big of a deal for Glasnow. But the fastball was rolling. Rangers hitters could not touch it, which was, predictable. We were expecting a good game, and he spun a gem here tonight. So that was fantastic to see. Before we preview tomorrow's game and get off the air, I just wanted to kind of go over all the roster moves that were made. I'm sure you're familiar with what happened. Maybe you weren't. Going back to last week, and I did cover this, but Chaz Rowe going on the 10-day, then the 60-day IL, and then Kevin Kiermaier on the 10-day injured list as well. So they made the moves. They basically brought up Hunter Strickland to replace Chaz Rowe and Brett Phillips to replace Kevin Kiermaier, essentially. And then before Friday's game, they found out that Pete Fairbanks had a right rotator cuff strain, so he goes on the injured list, and they bring up Brent Honeywell to replace him. And then Chris Archer goes on the 10-day IL with the right lateral forearm tightness, and so they bring up Trevor Richards to replace him. So Brent Honeywell gets sent down after that 2-inning start. So now we've got Trevor Richards and Phillips and now Strickland on the roster. And more importantly, as far as the pitching and the bullpen is concerned, obviously Richards and Strickland now a member of that group on the 26th man, and we'll probably see Trevor Richards either at the end of the Rangers series or in Yankee Stadium, replacing probably the Archer start, I would say. So as it lines up right now, as we look at the schedule, it's going to be Yarbrough tomorrow, Rich Hill it looks like on Wednesday. Thursday is a TBD, which would have been Archer's start. So I think it would probably be either Trevor Richards or him behind an opener on Thursday against Texas, and then the weekend series against the New York looks lined up. It'll be Wacha, Glasnow, and Yarbrough. So good news that the Yankees, they'll see Wacha again, but they'll be seeing Glasnow and Yarbrough for the first time, and it looks like, unless something changes, it could be Glasnow against Garrett Cole on Saturday in New York, which would be really cool because it seems like those guys always go up against each other, especially in the playoffs over the last 2 years. But I digress. Previewing tomorrow's contest at 7:10 at Tropicana Field, it is Kyle Gibson, the right-hander, going up against Ryan Yarbrough, the lefty. They have each made their first 2 turns through the rotation. We look at Kyle Gibson, the 33-year-old right-hander, is 1-0 on the season with a 7.11 ERA. In his first start of the year on opening day in Kansas City against the Royals, could only get 1 out through 32 pitches. He just got blown up in the first inning, gave up 5 runs on 4 hits. So just kind of a disaster for him there. His ERA was 135 after that game, if you can believe it. And then his second start corrected and looked much better against the Blue Jays at home for Texas. Went 6 innings of no runs, 6 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, 82 pitches. So maybe he goes 90, 95 pitches in 5 or 6 innings or so. We haven't seen him anytime soon, so I won't even bother with that. And then for the Rays, it will be Ryan Yarbrough, who is 0-1 on the season with a 5.06 ERA. His first time out against the Marlins went 5 2/3 shutout, 4 hits, no walks. So it looked like he was kind of untouchable, and then he faced a power lineup against the Red Sox in Fenway. 5 innings, basically 9 runs, 6 earned, 9 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. 89 pitches, though, so he's stretched out, but hoping for more like the Marlins series, and I would imagine that would be the case. I mean, this is the lineup that Texas has, which is to say not very good. Again, getting shut out 3 times over a 4-game stretch, which is absolutely absurd. I don't know if that's even ever happened before. I'm sure it has, but this is a lineup that Yarbrough should be able to dominate. I mean, I'm talking 6-7 innings, potentially scoreless or of 1 run. And then, maybe you get to Kyle Gibson, maybe you don't, but it's not like the Texas bullpen is anything incredible either. So I think the expectation is that the Rays would have a relatively easy win tomorrow. And hard to say how the lineup will go. I mean, maybe you throw in all the lefties that you can against the righty Gibson, but that would mean, I have a hard time believing that Cash is going to put Yoshi at first base and lead off again. But it really shouldn't surprise me. Coming out of the bullpen tomorrow after Yarbrough, so let's say Yarbrough goes 6, just because you can never predict the guy going 7 necessarily. So let's say he gets you 6. Castillo is out. Cody Reed is probably out as he goes back-to-back, but he only got 1 out in both of those times. But, I mean, pitched a lot in that 1 out that he had to get in Sunday against the Yankees. So I would scratch just Castillo and Reed just to be sure. So let's say maybe Thompson gets you 1, so then you're through 7. Strickland would probably pitch again, so that maybe he pitches 1 inning, and that gets you 8. And then take your pick. I think maybe Chris Mazza could pitch another 1 inning, so that would get you your 9. But other candidates, they're really Andrew Kittredge, maybe. Yeah, so Kittredge, Mazza, Strickland, and Thompson. Those 4 guys I think could come in behind Yarbrough, and hopefully the offense does their thing and the pitching is able to lock this team down. Because this, as I said when before the season started, looking at the month of April, this is a time that the Rays should be able to get ahead in the standings and stack up some wins. Not going so well so far. They're sitting at 500, but 3 more games against the Rangers. You've got the Royals on the road. You've got some home series against the Jays, A's, and Astros. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, it will be Gibson against Yarbrough tomorrow. We'll be on the air right after the game, hopefully discussing a win. It's great to be back on the air after taking the weekend off at the Trop. Try and go to the game tomorrow if you can. Let's get some more butts in the seats. There was only 3,500 tonight. Either way, go Rays. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
News.